Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and today's question asks if I could give some ideas to help co-parent with a toxic narcissistic ex-partner. Now, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please check out my other videos on mental health related topics and please consider subscribing to my channel. But just as a reminder, this video is not a substitute for support from a mental health professional, nor is it a substitute, indeed, for help from a legal professional. So first of all, let's define what we mean by toxic, what we mean by narcissistic. Now, it could refer to a behaviour, a characteristic. It could refer to someone with, say, a mental health condition, a personality disorder. It could be an addiction even. The behaviours, the characteristics that are involved, they may be problematic, not just for the ex-partner, for the kids, for the people around them, but problematic to themselves as well. But when I'm saying problematic, I don't mean necessarily, and I need to be careful how I say this, not necessarily deliberately toxic. Now, some people may recognize the impact of their behavior on others. They may seek out help, they may seek out support, they may try to be a better person. For the sake of this video, I'm referring to where there is intent. In other words, someone who means harm. They either can't or won't change. They intend to make things difficult. They intend to cause distress. And when I refer to narcissism, I'm not just talking about someone who disagrees with someone, has another opinion about something. I'm not referring to someone who can be selfish once in a while. I think we can all be selfish once in a while. I'm referring to pathological narcissism, where there is a pervasive sense of superiority, of entitlement. They're controlling, they're very disagreeable. So what I mean is someone who is being deliberately difficult, deliberately abusive. And I would like to say as well, this is not about trying to deliberately antagonize someone. This is not about trying to win, to get the last word. Narcissism is not something you throw stones at or poke with a stick, whether it's for the comedy value or whether you hope they're going to learn their lesson, they're going to see things differently. More often than not, that tends to end very badly. This is about trying to manage a difficult situation. Because remember, even when their normal tactics aren't working, don't expect them to just give in. Narcissists tend to hold a grudge for a very long time. No revenge is ever going to be enough. And in fact, they tend to thrive on it. They feel rejected. They feel abandoned. More often than not, they tend to be very vindictive. So be prepared for whatever harebrained scheme or lies that they come up with. Be prepared. Be safe. Use the law. Use support from professional organizations. Use personal therapy. Utilize whatever healthy relationships you have with others. So first of all, remember, in the relationship, whenever you were together, you may well have been brainwashed into believing that you were selfish, that you had a shed load of issues, that you were being unreasonable, you weren't able to make rational decisions. It was your fault the relationship ended, your bad behaviour, your lack of insight, your lack of empathy. In other words, you are the villain, you were the villain, you will always be the villain. They are the innocent victim. Now, that's something that very rarely changes during the relationship. So the first thing is, once the relationship is over, don't expect it to change then. That skewed version of you, that didn't change no matter how many times you compromised, how many times you gave in. It's not necessarily going to change now, and not maybe in the way you'd have hoped anyway. Remember, where there is narcissism, the belief system is completely different. Now I've made a video on narcissists and what they believe. If you think it would be helpful to check that out to educate yourself, by all means go ahead. But they will always believe that you are the villain. They are the victim. So again, I'm going to be careful how I say this. Being the villain is perhaps what you need to be, just not the villain that they claim that you are. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's imagine you have an agreement in place. Now, it came through the courts. It's a court agreement, or perhaps it came through mediation, or maybe even just agreed it yourselves. Then stick to it. Stick to that agreement. Now remember, more often than not, that person probably agreed a lot of things but never ever stuck to them. Boundaries were crossed a little piece at a time until that agreement meant nothing. So stick to that agreement, whatever was agreed. And remember, by sticking to it, that makes you the villain. And in the past, well, even in the present, if anything you've ever said has been used against you at some point in order to hurt you, then perhaps try to limit yourself to one-word answers. You're not always under an obligation to explain yourself, and even if you do, is the explanation going to be accepted? Because, for example, say that you're asked, can you change visitation or access times? Now, if you were to say, I can't because I'm working, chances are you're going to get back, well, okay, so you're putting your career ahead of your kids. If you're able to say, I can't, I'm unwell, you'll probably hear something like, do you know what, I've got an iron lung and I can manage it. What's your problem? If you were to say, I've made other plans, you're going to be accused of being selfish. Regardless of what it is, you will always be in the wrong. You will always be the villain. So try not to get caught up in that nonsense. Don't fall into that trap of over-explaining yourself, trying to reason with someone who has deliberately set out to be unreasonable. If you can't, for example, change times for the access, for the visitation, just say no. At the very least, or at very most rather, no, that doesn't suit. Now, you can be flexible. You can change your mind. You can accommodate them. If that is not being reciprocated, then why would you continue to do that? Perhaps just stop. Be prepared to be called selfish and unreasonable for not accommodating them when they won't accommodate you. And when it comes to communication, maybe try to keep everything in written form, say text or email. There's always going to be a record. Now, if you do have to have a face-to-face meeting, if possible, perhaps try to have an impartial third party present. Remember, in previous conversations, in previous discussions, maybe they'd use pretty much any excuse to gaslight you, guilt trip you, threaten you. Just say no. No, I will not be meeting with you face to face. Text or email, you know what? That's just as good a form of communication as any. And keeping it all in writing. Be succinct. Try to leave no room for ambiguity. Remember, the more you say, the more it's going to be twisted against you. So don't let yourself be lured into one of those induced conversations. More often than not, those conversations, they escalate into some kind of a conflict, which is going to be your fault. Either that or you end up giving in. So whatever communication you're having, even if it goes outside of the kids, outside of the subject itself, gently try to bring it back to the subject at hand. Either that or just leave it alone. You think of in the past, the number of times you tried to respond to guilt-tripping word salad. I mean, how did that go for you? Learn from that. And the thing about email, text, things like that is you get to decide when and how, or even if you respond. How you choose to as well. The evidence of the conversation, it's always going to be there as well for as long as you keep it. But again, you're more than likely going to be accused of being unreasonable. All they want to do is discuss this, talk about that, whatever. This is important, whatever. Chances are, use your discernment. Chances are it's going to become a threat, manipulation. Maybe just leave it alone. Bearing in mind how those previous conversations have went. And you know what? You may even be accused of ghosting. Also, use your experience, as I've said, use your experience to recognize gaslighting, the emotional blackmail, the implied or the open threats. So perhaps try to keep low contact, only communicate about the kids, nothing else. Chances are you're going to be accused of lacking empathy, making their lives deliberately difficult. You're the one who is disagreeable. You're the one who lacks empathy. You're making their lives deliberately difficult. You're the one who's all this, that, and the other. You may even hear it from other people, from their flying monkeys, if you will. Now, I've made videos on flying monkeys as well and how to handle them. If you think it would be helpful, check that out. Remember, you can have empathy, you can have sympathy, you can have compassion, but that's not the same as seeing everything their way. Your boundaries, remember, your boundaries are selfish to them. You are controlling them by insisting that they stick to whatever they agreed to with you. You are manipulating them because you insist that they respect your values, your limits, your boundaries. Well, do you know what? Let them. Now, I know that doesn't sit well because you would like them to see reason, you would like them to see things from your perspective. Chances are that's not going to happen. Now, when in the relationship, if there'd been a lot of attention-seeking drama and so on, again, don't expect that to end just because the relationship has ended. Rather, just ignore it and let them bask in their own sense of victimhood. Their rights are being stripped away. You're going to be accused again of having no empathy. Well, do you know what? Be accused. Stop paying attention. Stop believing the double standards, the hypocrisy. Recognize it for what it is. but leave it alone. This is their stuff, not yours. What you can recognize, though, is remember, now that the relationship has ended, in their minds you can expose them for what they are, and that makes you a threat. Well, they may try to destroy your character. This can be difficult. But again, with the right kind of support from friends, family, counselling and so on, you can learn to manage it. Maybe try to show an indifference towards the things you're being accused of. You are accountable for your actions, or indeed your lack of actions. You act with integrity. You know, if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Every single one of us gets it wrong. Unless, of course, you're a narcissist, in which case it's everybody else's fault. The expression I often use is they wet the bed and blame the blanket. So hold yourself accountable, but hold them accountable as well. Maintaining your boundaries while still respecting theirs, sticking to the agreements, not engaging in circular nonsensical arguments. That means to them, in their worldview, that you lack empathy, you are difficult, you are unreasonable, you are the villain. But really, what they're saying when they're doing that is, what they're really saying is, damn, I have no control over this person anymore. Hang on a minute, I can't hurt this person anymore. Damn, I'm not the centre of their universe, I cannot manipulate them. And lastly, what I think is quite a common mistake with people is thinking that person is going to change. They will see things differently. They will do things that are in the best interest of the kids. Now, if that person was unreasonable in the relationship, if they lied, ignored, abused, manipulated, if they only ever put their own needs, their own ego first, why would you think that's necessarily going to change just because you're not together anymore? The tactic, more often than not, just changes. Sometimes it actually gets worse. So, do what's best for the children. Do what's best for the children and for yourself. They often do what they think is best for them, even when it blows up in their face, and it's always going to be someone else's fault. And they may use the children to further their own agenda. They may try to alienate them against you. They may shower them with gifts, with praise. They may let them do things that you won't allow. They may openly weep in front of the kids to show how much you're hurting them, you know, after all they did for you. But remember, the kids need at least one healthy parent, one good role model. Those amazing gifts, the showering of praise and so on, that'll soon end. That is a performance, remember. They can't keep that up forever. So you show the children consistency. You show them love, healthy boundaries, discipline. You teach them self-respect as much as respecting other people. Show them a healthy parent that they can rely on. One that's not just going to treat them a certain way in order to get what they want. And I know this might sound difficult, but when the ex is perhaps continually bad-mouthing you to them, don't bad-mouth them back. If your ex is doing that, remember the kids are being put in the difficult position of having to choose. They may ask you questions, say things that the other parent has done or said. Now, you can certainly answer them, respond to them, but perhaps do it in a way that addresses a behaviour, not the person, because you're teaching the children a better way. You're teaching them boundaries. You're teaching them a better way to look at the world, to interact with others, separating a behaviour from a person. Where there is narcissism, there may be neglect, emotional neglect, there may be emotional unavailability there. You can compensate this. You can show that you are available. You can show them a parent that they can rely on. Give them the reassurance they need. Show them that they are loved. They don't have to earn it. Be the role model that they need to be. So they are just some ideas on how to co-parent with a narcissistic ex-partner. By all means, feel free to add any in the comment box below, anything that you think other people may find helpful. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel for future updates on mental health related topics. And until next time, thanks for watching.